Hey, everybody, and welcome to this. What is this? This must be a little bit confusing for you. Well, because of the fact that I've had time constraints and not able to do full episode this weekend, I wanted to release a few different sections of video. So there's going to be different segments of. I'm not really going to call it an episode. I'm going to call this the Fog Shorts, and I'm not really going to put numbers on them or part of a series because it's not. It's not going to be part of the series, for example, where I read Jesse Ventura's book. These are going to be freestanding videos of me just talking. Basically, the concept is going to be the same as a full episode where I talk about current events, but split into multiple videos. So you're probably going to get 3 or 4 of these. But we're going to go ahead and get started with the first one. Now, of course, I would be remiss if I did not begin with our passage of the week before I go into our first story, which is about Donald Trump being on Elon Musk's Twitter space. Our passage of the week is in Joshua 1:5. There shall not any man be able to stand before thee all the days of thy life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. I will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. And I love especially that second part. The first part is good, but the second part, I will not fail thee nor forsake thee. What a promise. We have a God who will not leave us or forsake us. He is in charge, He is in control, He is faithful. Now, we could look at this and look at it one of two ways. Or we could look at it from a political or military standpoint, which I'm not going to do. There shall not be any man be there shall not, I should say, be any man to stand before you all the days of thy life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. So we could look at that and say, well, we're invincible, right? Politically, we're going to win. We're going to go in here and take back our country. We have no way we're going to be beaten. We could say that. But I wouldn't even say that. I do think that our cause is a righteous cause and our cause is the winning cause, that we will win. But I'm not claiming this promise in that way today. Now, what I will say is no man will stand before us in the sense of we have the victory, in the sense of we do not fight a war of flesh and blood, but against principalities, against darkness. We are light fighting against darkness. And it's funny because our enemy knows that that is a winning message, so they have tried to co-opt it. If you remember when Joe Biden first got in, he started saying things like, "We're going into a long, dark winter." And even in his speech where he raised his fist and he had the red background, he talked about, "We're on the side of good and they're dark, evil people," which is funny because then his own supporters decided to call him Dark Brandon. So, counter signaling was a little bit confusing there. But anyway, to continue, he is not able to stand against us because evil is not able to stand against us. And the Democrats are not able to stand against us in the sense of the evil that is in them is not able to. Now, politically, because there are people on this planet who are able to do things, able to vote, what have you, we may have short-term losses. We could politically. Now, long term, I believe that the backlash is only starting. That the backlash to this is starting, and that things are going to get better. And it may get worse before it gets better, but overall, by the time I'm an old man, things are going to get better. So I would say that. The other thing I will say though is that all evil has to submit to good. And we see this from the end of Matthew, don't we? We see where Jesus says, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me." No, we have the power. That's one thing that I think it's important to think about is God, heavenly forces, the Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, our God too, is in control of the earth. Sometimes people want to say, "Oh, well, up there is good and down here is just completely bad." And yes, there's a spirit of the age that is leading people astray, and things in many ways, as I just said, are going to get better before they get worse. Sure. There eventually will be a great tribulation, we know from Revelation, and that, yeah, it may be that things get really, really bad much later. I'm not one of those types who thinks, "Oh, we're at the end times." I don't. I think that people have thought that for a real long time. I don't know if history is going to end at the year 3000 or what. Nobody knows. So I wanted to read that to you guys because we have the victory. God is in control. He says he will not fail us. He will not forsake us. All right, guys, some plugs for you real quick before I get into our story about Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Wanted to remind you guys the best way to follow me is here on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube, here on Rumble if you're watching on Rumble, and here on Spotify if you're listening, or on Substack. I want Substack to be the base of operation. So for sure go to The Fog and The Whirlwind.substack.com/subscribe. Pretty easy to find, The Fog and The Whirlwind.substack.com/subscribe. So go there for sure. Looking forward to seeing you there. There is a chat. You can go to a chat and you can comment on the threads that I post and we can talk there. You can also find me on Telegram. It's t.me/fog and whirlwind. And then Instagram is also the place I'm pretty active, Fog and Whirlwind. Twitter as well. You can find me pretty active on Twitter, Fog and Whirlwind. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys there. Okay, now to get into the show. Very excited to talk to you guys about this because this really made the internet really excited. So the first thing that I saw was I actually have two Twitter accounts, and one is my name and one is the Fog on the Whirlwind. So under, I think it was actually, believe it or not, it was Joshua 1v5, and I'm pretty sure it still is because I really like that. I will not leave, or I should say, I will not fail thee nor forsake thee. So I have Joshua 1v5. I think that's still my Twitter name. So you can go there. That's where my account is, and you can also go to Fog and Whirlwind, and that's where the official Fog and Whirlwind one is. And I had gone into my account, and I looked, and it said new tweet notifications from Donald J. Trump, and I thought, whoa, did he actually tweet? Or is this that I accidentally follow a fake account? Well, as I started scrolling through, I realized, yeah, he tweeted like 5 times, and a number of website links. One was an ad, and one was a retweet from the Trump team saying Donald Trump is going to be hosting a space with Elon Musk. Make sure you don't miss it. And I'm delighted. And I had this discussion pretty recently with Nathan on Zoo Nation, which, by the way, I want to tell you guys, go to, look up on YouTube, Zoo Nation. You can also find the Zoo Nation podcast. That's what it's called on Spotify, the Zoo Nation podcast. But I was talking to Nathan, he was talking about his frustration of Trump not being on Twitter because he's able to speak to the people. He's able to speak in a way that is unfiltered, a way people can read and people can then comment on and retweet and talk about. And Trump, it gives him a connection to the people that he has foregone because he's been removed off Twitter before. So it was a little different, I will say, when he was removed off Twitter and got his account back on Facebook and Twitter, but wasn't really using it because ownership had not changed. Well, it's different now because Elon Musk has Twitter. And look, for a while he was running it himself completely. And he has since taken a little bit of a step back and has had someone else running the company. A person that has still had some people banned. I mean, say what you will, and I'm not going to come out as some, hardcore, oh, I love this guy. No, not going to do that, okay? But David Duke is not on Twitter. And he is on Gab because Andrew Torba of Gab is a free speech absolutist completely. And maybe that Elon Musk doesn't care about David Duke. It may be that he doesn't know much about him at all. I'm sure he's heard the name. But, I mean, you got to think Elon's a immigrant to this country. He's not going to know a whole lot about people that you and I have heard over time through the election cycles and stuff like that. That's just one guy. I mean, for the longest time, it was a real struggle, a real fight. Most of you know this. For Nicholas J. Fuentes, to get his Twitter account back. He now has it back. I think it's Nick J. Fuentes is the account name. So he has his back. But it was because of pushing and pushing and pushing by his supporters. They would all tweet hashtag free Fuentes, hashtag free Nick Fuentes, things like that. Finally, he got his account back. And finally, 2 of them, I forget the names of the accounts, but there's 2 accounts that were in a thread with Elon. And finally, they asked him, can you please bring him back? And he said, very well, as long as he doesn't break the law. And they said, thank you so much. And so Nick got his account back. I think it was roughly 3 days later or something like that. So I want to talk about that at some point. Probably going to do that in a full episode. Talk about there's actually been a Groyper War II where the Groyper types, the America Firsters, people that like Nick Fuentes are trying to make Trump's campaign more conservative. So we'll go into that in another episode. I will talk about that. But to go into this space, and real quick, the reason why it's relevant, I will say, is because Nick was commenting on the space with Elon and Trump, saying something to the effect of, "We don't want war with Iran. America is full. No more legal immigrants or illegal. Sincerely, your base." And that's what the World War II basically is doing. And again, can't get into it too much, but they're basically writing emails to the Trump campaign saying, "We don't want war and we don't want immigration." So I can go into that in a future episode. So anyway, that was one thing that happened. The other thing that happened was there's these Crescenstein, or maybe it's Crescenstein brothers. Ed is one of them. I forget the name of the other. Two nobodies, like two people that I just looked at them and I'm like, who are you? Like, never in my life have I ever heard of you. You know, you hear the name, love him or hate him. You hear the name Steven Crowder or Ben Shapiro. You say, okay, yeah, I know who that is. Heck, you hear the name Cenk Uygur, you're like, okay, yeah, I know who that is. I mean, I'm on the right, but I know who Cenk Uygur is. I know who Anna Kasparian is. I know who Hassan Piker is. He's got a following. Destiny's another one. Another these leftists. Vosh, these liberal type leftists, Marxist types. And again, I'm throwing a lot together, but there's differences. You know, Destiny's not a Marxist. He's more of a progressive and liberal. Same for Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks. Whereas Hassan's more communist, and so is Vosh, or libertarian socialist, however they want to call themselves. So anyway, but these guys, the Crescensteins, were commenting and saying, just bad mouthing Trump and talking about how they're, you know, not going to vote for Donald Trump. They're going to vote for Harris, and they're these big guys in the white dudes for Harris group, from what I can tell, and there's a sense of irony to it, but there's also, like, they one time posted a meme, and I'll find it and put it up, of one of them riding on top of the other one, which was really, really weird and stupid. But yeah, weird guys who say they're supporting Kamala Harris. And maybe they're doing it ironically. I mean, it's possible, but I don't think so. It seems to be sincere. So these people were commenting on the space, and there were so many views that the site kept crashing. Like Glenn Beck, I actually saw a comment from Glenn Beck saying, "I planned my day around this. Why is it not working?" Laura Loomer commented saying, "This isn't working." And then when Elon started the space, he said, "Very sorry, there was actually a cyber attack." And so there was technical issues from the get-go. Now, to get into the meat and potatoes, I'm going to try and keep these segments short, of what was said. In some ways, it sounded like a Trump rally, but a little bit different because this was conversational. Every now and then, Elon would say something, and look, did Trump do most of the talking? Of course he did. That's his personality. Some of it is, well, he's a candidate for president, so of course he's going to do the majority of the talking. So the thing is, whenever he was talking, of course, he talked about war. He told some of the story about, oh, we had peace in the Middle East and we were going to get out of Afghanistan, but not like that. Afghanistan was the worst day for our country. He also said some things about energy. He talked about the economy, and it was really, I could tell, trying to relate to average everyday people, saying these guys, these people, sometimes they walk into a store, they can't afford anything. Sometimes they can only afford a few things instead of being able to get an entire basket full of stuff. And he said so much of it, he said, is drill, baby, drill. We've got to be, have drilling in our country. And the other thing he hit consistently, he did say a number of things about Kamala. Big thing he hit on that was she ruined California. She at first was a DA in San Francisco and a public official in San Francisco. Then she was DA or a DA in California for the state. And she's made it unlivable. And now, she's vice president, and she's had all this time. Elon actually brought up and said, well, she's had this time to fix stuff. And he said, yeah, and she won't fix it. She's actually going to be worse than Biden. That's one thing that Trump said. She would be worse than Biden. Which is kind of interesting to think about because Biden's been pretty darn awful. So he talked about that, and he talked about the importance of bringing down energy costs, because he said if you bring down energy costs, everything will come down. Another claim that he made is he said he had heard from some people in big oil or energy specialists, what have you, that the amount of natural gas and oil in Alaska is almost like Saudi Arabia. It could be as big or bigger. And so we could be sitting really good if we did actually drill it there, but the Biden administration won't do it. He said Obama wanted to do it. I got it done. Then Biden canceled it when he got in there and decided they didn't want to do that anymore. So big mistakes made by the Biden administration. It was literally one of the first things he did. I remember some of the first things he did were on energy policy, and gas prices started going up immediately. And some of it is not necessarily the lack of oil coming in by that point. Maybe some of it is. But a lot of it was market signals. You're telling people that are trading stock, people that are doing things in the economy, Wall Street, what have you. Hey, I don't have any love for Wall Street. Okay, I think they're a bunch of corporatists. But the thing is, right, they do have a bearing on the economy. And if they think things are going to get worse, then things are going to trend downward in the economy, right? And look, we shouldn't be slaves to the almighty dollar. We really shouldn't, but I don't want to say that coming from a perspective of someone that's making it. There's people that are not making it, people that are barely able to buy toothpaste for their toothbrush, people barely able to buy a potato with which to eat. Those people actually need help. And a big way to help them is not to hand them out money, but to actually make government policy where their cost of living goes down. Then they can get gas easier. They can buy food more easily. That's the thing to do. So wanted to say that about the space. And yeah, he talked about, one thing I really thought, to me, one of the biggest highlights really was not that. It was him talking about Kim Jong-un. He said some very kind and complimentary things and said, well, we got along well. And Elon said, yeah, I think that he understood you and that he understood strength. He knew that he wasn't going to just push America around. And Trump said, yeah, well, we had a good relationship and I talked to him. And he said, yeah, there were some contentious times. And also Elon said that was one of the funniest tweets I've ever seen, was where you called him Rocket Man. And he said, yeah, that's what I did. I called him Rocket Man. And he said something about him, you might want to push the button. I told him, well, I have a button on my desk too, and my button is bigger than yours, which is really funny. And then what was funny about that, I was actually doing a little bit of reading on this, and apparently there was a joke. I don't know if it was in the space or if it was someone else that I heard talking about this, that there was a big button on Trump's desk, and it was to bring, and when he pressed it, someone came in and brought him a Diet Coke. And at one point, this is a rumor, I don't know who Trump was speaking to. Trump was in a meeting with somebody, and at one point he started to reach for the button and said, no, I'm not going to do that. I probably shouldn't. And so the person he was speaking to got really nervous. I don't know if it was a government official or a foreign leader or not. And then later, Trump just all of a sudden pressed the button. And then they kept talking, and the guy's probably sweating. And then someone walks in carrying a Diet Coke, and Trump says, thank you very much, and takes it and starts drinking it. I just can't imagine. I mean, I wonder who that was. How amazing would it have been? It would be one of the most amazing things ever, just to mess with somebody. Because Trump, was always China this, China that, or Mexico this, Mexico that, just to screw with them, just to mess with them, to mess with the president of Mexico or the president of China, to say that and then press it, and then have this leader who he's demonized over and over in speeches, sweating, thinking, what in the world is going on? And then 30 seconds or a minute later, someone walks in with a Coca-Cola, with a Diet Coke, and hands it to him, and he says, oh, thank you. And then they realize, oh, that was what it was. I love it. It's a hilarious thing. Trump is not, there's people that talk about, oh, well, Trump's not that funny. It's like, he can be. He definitely can be at his rallies. He can be on a debate stage. He can be in some of his interviews. And he also can be, as far as trolling people. And in ways, he kind of has trolled people a lot, and I could totally see him doing that to mess with somebody, whether it be a government official or whether it be a leader of a country, which is hilarious to think about. Because then for it to be something as benign as just a drink, which is just great. And then what if he leaned over and said, "And do you want one too, Mr. President?" That would be so cool. Well, so he talked about Kim Jong-un, which I thought was really good, and this is in essence the American paleoconservative message. Peace through strength. What neocons have hijacked. The New World Order globalist types love to say, well, we believe in peace through strength, and you guys over here, you claim to be conservative, but I thought it was peace through strength, and for some reason, you guys aren't wanting us to, this is what Shapiro says, to flex our muscles a little bit. Basically if we send aircraft carriers in the water around Iran, that's just us flexing our muscles a little bit. And to our point, as the paleocons, the real conservatives, okay, what happens if they hit those ships? Or if there's a Gulf of Tonkin incident, sort of like what brought us into Vietnam? What happens then? Do we just go to war? Just, have at it? That's not what Ronald Reagan did. He got us out of Iran when a military base was hit and Marines died. He said, well, they don't want us here, and he got us out of there. And we should have strength, but strength when our country, our continental United States, is attacked. That's what we should have. And that's one thing Trump understood in many ways. Look, did drone strikes go up under his administration? Yeah. Do I like that? Absolutely not. But Iran, really, there could have been a situation where we could have gone to war with Iran, and Trump didn't do that. We could have gone to war with North Korea. Again, it would have been a very bad war because they openly and explicitly have nukes. And that would have been a very deadly war with a lot of tension, sure. And Trump could have, just been hardcore on North Korea. And at times he was, but he had a carrot as well as a stick. Trump didn't only have a stick, which a lot of neocons love. A lot of neocons forget the walk softly part. Teddy Roosevelt would say to walk softly and to carry a big stick. Neocons just want to hit people with the big stick all the time. It's not just neocons either. Really, it's neoliberals as well. This is why I'm starting to drop the neocon labels and just refer to them as liberals. It's because on so many issues they agree. The neocons have no desire, no wish to preserve our culture, no desire, no real wish to preserve our borders. And on the war, neocons and neoliberals really agree. Neoconservatives and neoliberals agree about the war in Ukraine. They agree about the war out in the Middle East, most of them. And it's the ones that are further left who are not necessarily neoliberal who are calling the Israeli military oppressors or colonizers or what have you. And that's their stance. Whereas the neocons are all about Israel, and so are most of the neoliberals as well, and want more war. They do, and they want to just hit with a stick. At least Donald Trump wanted there to be a carrot and not just a stick.